top of the table there, and this is celebrity roast, I think it is, isn't it? And Councillor Dick, I wonder whether you could call on you to introduce these folk. You know them well, and
Chairman, happy to do that. The author of the letter that's included in the report is Nikki Savrank, and I'm sorry if I get your pronunciation not quite right. And she is a very busy lady with many hats and responsibilities in the Gisborne district, and with close connections with iwi and hapu and Ngāti Porou in particular. But I'll leave her to describe that. Steve Weatherall has been whilst he's a major trucking operator with about, at last count, about 70 units, Steve, operating around the country, but based with his headquarters in Gisborne, has always been a strong rail supporter. And when Kiwi Rail lowered the level of 2 tunnels on the Gisborne line to enable high cube containers to be carried in late 2011, I think it was, then Steve grabbed the opportunity as a freight forwarder and moved a very substantial amount of freight, containerised freight, by rail from Gisborne to Napier. In fact, the quantities that he was moving could have in fact been doubled, apart from the problem of Kiwi Rail not having sufficient rolling stock at that time. Then the unfortunate washouts occurred, but Steve has hung on in there, and he'll describe, I'm sure, his reasons for that. Graham Carroll is a consultant from Wellington, and Graham was heavily involved with this council and the earlier Napier-Gisborne Rail consortium, and his specialties are logistics and commercialisation of scientific work. You'd probably describe it better than that. His commitment to rail is very certain, and whilst he has to earn a living as a consultant, most of the work that he's done on the rail thing has been voluntary. So that's about it.
thank you, Councillor Dick. Well, if you've decided who you'd like to lead out, and just give us your overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll lead. Kia ora anō, Mr. Chairman and councillors. I present Steve. Alan has introduced him, and Graham, and myself, Nikki Savrank. First of all, I'd like to congratulate your council and Ports of Napier for the successful negotiations that has seen a breakthrough with Kiwi Rail to lease the Napier to Wairoa rail line. GRC has a steering committee of 8 members, with 4 parties holding specific rail and freight experience relevant at this time. Steve Weatherall, Dean McCoyd of DBM Contracting Limited, Grant Craig, Operations Manager, Dunedin Railways, and Mark Brown, CEO of QRS Wairoa, and myself. A little bit of information about my background. Alan was very kind to me. My name is unusual, I know. In fact, my great-grandfather came over from Britain and actually came from Flanders in Germany. I think it was pronounced Saranka, but along the way it's got anglicised to Sarank. I'm the chair of New Hiti Incorporation, and for those of you who don't know much about incorporations, it's a Maori land farm legalised under the Tuture Whenua Act. We're a mixed farming entity, sheep and beef, but uniquely we have 1,000 hectares of native flora and ancient wetland reserve, which supplies water to all the farms from Tolaga Bay north to Tongariro Bay. We reside in the traditional iwi boundaries of Ngāti Porou. So Ngāti Porou recently completed their settlement with the Crown. So we sit round about just north of Tolaga Bay, but well within their boundaries on the east coast. GRC is currently establishing its cooperative society and working with financial advisors. We have sought an undertaking from KiwiRail an extension of time up to the 30th of June 2017 to complete a business plan, including negotiations with KiwiRail. GRC has held informal talks with Gisborne District Council Mayor Ming Foon. Iwi and Hapu from Gisborne, including Ngāti Porou, over the last 12 months we have sought their support to fix the Gisborne to Wairoa line for tourism and freight. Our recommendation is that given that your council has significant forestry interests on the northern boundary at Kopuawhara, requiring efficient, timely rail transport to Napier Port, and that Gisborne Vintage Rail currently lease Gisborne to Muriwai railway line from KiwiRail, GRC seeks from your committee agreement for a joint approach to KiwiRail to negotiate a lease from Wairoa to Gisborne. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So we felt, with this presented here that to you, that we're happy to take questions, particularly Steve, in concerning his logistics and freighting transportation background. Graham, because he's been involved for many years now, since before 2012 when the washout occurred. My role is quite strategic in that I've managed to bring iwi on board. I work closely with Matānuku Mahuika, who's the chairman of the Ngāti Porou Settlement Holding Company, and I have affiliations south, which is into Kahununu, Wairoa, and Muriwai, which is Ngāi Tāmanuhiri.
Are there no other comments from Steve or?
All I'd like to say, Chairman, councillors, is basically some of the councillors are here that have talked before on this subject here. It's for the Gisborne area to go ahead. I believe it needs a multi-facet transport system, basically, that caters for getting all sorts of containers and export products out of Gisborne. We have in a local paper just last night a local mill trying to start up there and create 50 odd jobs in the finished forestry market. The freight is seasonal at the moment, coming in and out of Gisborne, particularly for rail, but I feel that we'd get a lot of trucks off the road and certainly give Gisborne a chance to grow if there was an efficient service there to be had. Really, that's my biggest push, if you like. I'm not greedy. I don't profess to be able to try and shift everything by road, but as it works at the moment, that's what is happening. I mean, at the moment we're in the middle of shifting probably 16,000 tonne of squash down from Gisborne, and that's what we had success in shifting originally in 2012, whereby KiwiRail had a train every second day in Gisborne, so we were putting 16 to 20 wagons or 16 to 20 foot 40-foot containers on that train every second day coming to Napier Port of squash. Now that product now shifts by truck to Napier here and gets containerised here. The product is still coming this way, but a certain proportion of that product now goes to Tauranga as well. And that's basically because the trucking side of things, people want to get back north, they don't necessarily want to come south. So other transport operators are trying to get back to Auckland, so they'll do that at a price, so that some of that squash that used to come to Napier now goes to Tauranga.
Graham, have you a comment to make?
No, just to say that I think, we've got a lot of background in this, we've done a lot of work over it, and there's no doubt in my mind that what Nikki has brought together at the Gisborne end is a game changer. The organisation she's brought together, the horsepower she brought together, and the financial backing, which has been one of the crucial things in the earlier work with council here, where that wasn't there before, and I think it's an absolute game changer. And now to complement what council here has already done through to Wairoa, so a joint negotiation seemed the best approach.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I've a lot of sympathy for this approach. However, I'm struggling to understand why we would try and enter into a lease arrangement with KiwiRail when it was quite obvious at the moment we got success was when the council backed out of it and let the port come in and do a business deal with KiwiRail. The line's not going anywhere. There's no need to lease it. I'm just wondering, is it the rationale behind the lease? First question, and the second question is, now that we've got a bit more grunt happening in the Gisborne end, is there not actually a business case to dump on the table and say, hey, well, this is how it'll work?
Councillor, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I've been around a long time, and my grandfather planted, along with many other Māori people, planted the forestry at the state forest on the Wharearatas. Many of you may know that it was actually a state forest. It got sold off to all the foreign companies, and essentially Gisborne is surrounded by foreign foresters. The promise was that forest would, when it grew to fruition, the proceeds and the assets would be retained by Wairoa and Gisborne. Well, of course, that hasn't happened, and Gisborne, I think, has suffered from that. But to answer your question, I feel now that it's time for Gisborne and Hawke's Bay to take charge of the line. There may be different views here, but I don't think we're different in our approach, including many of the iwi who are heartily tired of Crown or government platitudes, whichever government is in power. And so that little bit of history is because I think we do need to take charge of the line. I do think that, and I'm not criticising KiwiRail, I'm just saying to you that whichever government's in power has to provide that promise, which was to ensure that Gisborne and Wairoa had the asset that it was going to be. Well, that asset has now disappeared, and we've been left with what? A line that is broken, a line that should have been repaired in 2012 and wasn't. You've heard from Steve how we could be all sitting here talking differently today, but we've got to start somewhere, and we intend to start now, which is to set about negotiating with KiwiRail to the lease of the line, and then we can sit down and work with KiwiRail and other operators.
Isn't access to the line the key issue, whether it's by way of lease or some other form of instrument?
Correct. Absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. And I think, for Fenton, I mean anyone else, it's the access to the line. Absolutely. And reaching an arrangement that, because for those who will finance the repair of the line, I mean it's how that's structured together. So that's why, in terms of how it's put together, and obviously the Napier Port is critical to it, but it's seen as the Napier Port is owned by the Regional Council, and the council policy has a major impact on it.
Councillor Bailey.
Yes, thank you so much for coming and giving this presentation, coming all this way down to do that. I'm excited to think that there's an opportunity to get the line operating again. I think that's be a really good move, not only for the Gisborne community and the Hawke's Bay community, but the planet as a whole. From my point of view, it's about carbon emissions, and I'm really pleased to see that. The question I have of you is, you've asked for our support, which is, to me, will be forthcoming, but what do you actually mean by support? What are you actually asking us to do? Is it just to keep on encouraging what you're doing, or is it something else you're thinking of?
Councillor, you'd be aware that KiwiRail announced an expression of interest process just before Christmas, and 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas. So that didn't allow much time to put together a suitable approach to that. But we did, with the help of Graham and Steve Underwood, we put together an alternative proposal. I'd like to say that also we were very pleased when Alan, with the Hawke's Bay Regional Transport Committee, supported our proposal to KiwiRail. I think it's more that it's what I believe is that from our side and our steering committee, we would not want to see just Gisborne Rail Cooperative on its own. After all, we're not the Council of Gisborne. For that matter, we're not Eastern Port either. But this is a time in which I think that because of your success of being able to bring KiwiRail, to an agreement, that KiwiRail would frankly sort of say, well, who are these Gisborne Rail people? But we recognise who Hawke's Bay Regional Council is, and Ports of Napier. So it was with trepidation I picked up the phone and talked to Alan and said to him, look, this is our committee's view. We think that we should seek support from you. That may be just simply a meeting with KiwiRail, with your representatives and us. I state here for the record that we're not seeking financial support from your committee, but we do recognise the mana of your committee. We do.
Wilson?
Just interested in, you had a conversation with Meng Foon. I've had many conversations with Meng Foon. Very hard to pin down on this subject, depending who's next in the room or who was in there before you. What was his view on this? Is he going to go shoulder to shoulder with us and unequivocally back this project?
I've had very similar experiences with our mayor. However, I do come from an iwi that has standing in his eyes. I'm not a trustee of Ngāti Pro Runanui, but I'm seen as the kaumātua status now. And I think in my discussions with Mr. Foon, he recognised that the ability of iwi and hapu needs to be considered, and perhaps he shouldn't sit quite on the fence as what he has done. To round it off, he has sought my advice on the work that our steering committee is doing. It's always, have you heard from KiwiRail yet? I think in this term of his election, he wants to do more for rail that he hasn't done before. I understand that he has made approaches to KiwiRail, but I'm not privy to those, and I haven't sought a formal meeting yet with council. But I do take on board what you're saying, and the only advice I can give you is that we'll try our very best to steer our mayor onto our side.
Councillor Barker.
That was part of my question that I just turned around. I think it's going to be a little unusual if your organisation has support from the Hawke's Bay Regional Council and the Gisborne Council is silent, people will ask a few questions. I think that's an important consideration for them. But also, in the same vein, getting support from the Gisborne Council, what about other important entities in the transport area of Gisborne, such as the port? Other, what are their views? Have you got them, Marshall? We've got very good transport operator from Gisborne here, will do that. It's great. But what about the rest?
Well, at this stage, Council, we haven't got the support, the formal support of Gisborne District Council. I've had informal discussions with Bill Burdett and he's the chair of the Transport Committee. Bill is keen to get this happening, as he said to me. Many councillors have campaigned on that on this platform that they would bring back the rail. But no, the other aspect about this is that their meeting dates are a little bit behind yours, so I haven't had an opportunity yet to enter their agenda and formally put to them what we're putting to you. My encouragement to come here was because you have been successful in working with KiwiRail. And I felt that, or believed, and my committee was certainly keen for me to come here to see you all and express our enthusiasm to lead this forward. If Mayor Foon says to me, well, the council will now take it over, and I'd consider that and happily work with council. So I can't really, in all honesty, tell you that I know formally their position, just the informal talks that I've had with them to this point.
Councillor Graham?
Firstly, thank you, team, for coming along. Nikki, I haven't met you before, but one thing for sure, I admire your boldness and getting that redress, and I'm very strong in your camp, and sooner we can get central government to honour their commitments and get out of our lives, the better. So that kaupapa I really sign off on with you. But the boldness is twofold really, because it's a very difficult line. So, I really admire all of you that you're tenaciously hanging in there on that, because we would have loved to have gone the whole way. But as you know, we found that wasn't, as Councillor Wilson stated too, until we went that very commercial route and a commercial deal was signed, that we were having the same difficulties, or the pathway was difficult as you were finding. So I have a question, but I also have some, I'll leave my question, but I just want to endorse what these other councillors are saying, that it would be really important to get the Gisborne Council on side, if we, and I'd be keen for us to support you. I think that would be, it's a very sensible thing for us to do. What you're saying really is that you would lease the line to Nuhaka. Is that right?
Well, I think this is where there needs to be more discussion. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of discussion with Alan and the Transport Committee, but certainly we have shared interests. So we have interests in a line that is functioning and takes our freight out of Gisborne and into Gisborne. You have an interest in bringing your boundary, which is Kopuawhara or Nuhaka, into operational mode. So those were the basis of our views to present ourselves today, was that we have shared interests. How that will actually work in presenting ourselves to KiwiRail, if you decide today or soon after to support our recommendation, well, that's further discussion, obviously, by your committee.
So I just have a supplementary comment on that, can I? That
Yes.
so we have a deal, our port has a deal with Kiwi Rail to Wairoa. And the line to Nuhaka is fine, that's in Aoruhi as well. So we wouldn't want to compromise that deal, that's going forward. So,
That's right.
yeah, you would have to exactly know what you want us to support. And I would think, without preempting that, it's from Nuhaka to Gisborne, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Kiwi Rail would probably feel more comfortable in leasing the line to Hawke's Bay Regional Council. I do. But having said that, I'm of the view, and I'm of the view that, in fact, this is the one chance we've got to have a joint ownership of the lease. This is the one chance in which we've got to take control back from political machinations that go on in Wellington.
Councillor
Can I just
Sorry.
perhaps a comment, just because I think we mindful of use of terminology about the word lease. I mean, Kiwi Rail uses the words occupy, various terminologies and how things to get. The end game is to get a deal that enables operation with Kiwi Rail and anyone else through to Gisborne. As simple as that. That's the end game, and of a method that allows the financiers that Nikki's arranged the security of how that is handled. So in terms of how that is done to get the line open. Okay, there's the end game. So in a sense, so that, and clearly the port is a crucial partner in how that is put together and negotiated.
Councillor Bentley.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for coming along and speaking with us on this issue. I think there's probably, in principle, pretty widespread support around this table for the concept of doing this, but we know from our own negotiations that it's very highly commercial, and we had to work pretty hard to get a deal together. So my question to you is, you've asked us to support your bid for a lease of the line in principle. There's no numbers here. There's no modelling on the viability of the proposal you've come to us with, and I'd be struggling to support it unless I knew it was a viable proposition, because I know what they'll be like in response. So my question to you is, what sort of modelling have you done? What level of comfort can you give us that this is a viable proposal that you're wanting to go forward with? And have you considered coastal shipping as an alternative link between our two areas?
Steve?
Definitely the coastal shipping thing is what the Port of Gisborne has pushed the idea of for a long time. They don't have any facility to handle container there at the moment, or the wharf space to do it. In fact, that they're basically trying to create more wharf space with other people that lease bits and pieces of land on the port at the moment and getting them off the port, because they really want it for log storage. That's the reality of it. We've had discussions after the rail fell in, probably 12 months, probably in 2013, we had Pacifica come into Gisborne, and we had some big discussions with them about them bringing their coastal boats in and out of Gisborne and servicing either. But mainly what they were looking for was actually going back up north, was actually taking freight from Gisborne and taking it to the port of Tauranga or Auckland. That was how they saw they had capacity at that point in time. Their capacity going south was very limited to come into Napier or further south. They didn't want to know about anything about bringing the empty containers into the town, so that those had to get in there some other way to create the job. They weren't in a position to carry empty containers from, unless they could pick them up out of the South Island and bring them back up again, which the shipping companies probably weren't going to be happy about at the end of the day. So we have pushed on that path. It is still a path that's out there that some people, in particularly the port of Gisborne Port hold closer, that they believe they could one day get a coastal shipping system going. But the reality is that the market we deal in anyway, and particularly in the produce game. It's not maybe so bad about other products, but I just know with dealing with Duke and Isho and those sort of people, they sit there, they wait for a letter of credit from an overseas customer until that comes, and then somebody will push the button and you'll have 2 days to get it to a port of either Napier or Tauranga, depending on where the shipping's going from. A lot of the freight is just-in-time freight. So there's a 3-month period of the year where, or maybe a bit more now, 4-month period of the year when Gisborne can support probably 5 trains or 6 trains a week during squash and apple time. Once that's over, the rest of the year it's probably more like a 1 service or 2 services a week, and you've got to be pretty careful about when you put those services in place. But if there's going to be finished wood product, factories built and such things like that, other opportunities are going to open up. And it's one of these cases where if you haven't got the infrastructure there, it's not going to happen. It's not going to move forward. It's about like what we do in putting refrigerated gear on there out of Gisborne 20 years ago. I mean, there used to be two trucks used to leave Gisborne a week with produce out of the place. Now we do, yesterday I think we did 38 loads of fresh produce out of Gisborne, sweet corn and watermelon, apples and such things out of Gisborne. So if the infrastructure's there, the region will grow. There's no two ways about it. And there's a big push for more apples to be planted in Gisborne, but there's not the infrastructure there to carry it at the moment. There's not the cool storage or the freight out of the place for anybody to handle in volume. So that's why I believe anyway that the area needs the rail. Now, the work that Graham and I did in the earlier days under the Gisborne Napier Gisborne Rail, which was the other identity we've both been tied up to in the past. We did a lot of modelling around, and no, Gisborne was never going to stand on its own 2 feet in the short term. What was going to make it stand on its feet was if we could get log trains coming out of Wairoa 3 or 4 times a week, like you guys is looking like being achieved now, and it might be more than that, and waiting for the log to come on out of the likes of the Mahia Peninsula and up that further up the line. We've tried to talk to the Port of Gisborne around the basis that there's no reason why logs couldn't come north out of those areas into the Port of Gisborne as well, but they have got a wall up, if you like, or push back against the whole rail idea because they believe that it's going to be heavily subsidised and they'll never get their coastal shipping off the ground as long as there's a railway line there, and they'll publicly campaign against us on that front, or their CEO will anyway.
No shift in attitude?
No, not at this stage. But there is some movement happening, if you like. There's some thoughts about it. But yeah, it's one of those trying to shift some attitudes that it's not going to be easy. But I'm not saying it won't happen. It just takes time and people's attitudes to change. Really, at the end of the day.
Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you. Thanks for your passion and your aspirational goals that you've brought to us today. A number of my questions have been covered off. The first was the definition of support, which Councillor Bailey's asked, and you've outlined it's not financial you're seeking. The other one was around the Eastland Group, and so I understand that they're not in support of this, so you've covered that off. But you know, I have sympathy for the fact, and your words were beautiful. If infrastructure's there, the region will grow, and I get that. I also have concerns that we've got a deal, and it was negotiated with private parties. So you know, the politics got out of the way. But there are only so many. I'm not a great train person. You know, trains that. What do you call them, Alan? The things that can go. The wagons. Yeah, there are only so many wagons, so we've got enough for the weekends. You know, they're sitting there and they can be used in the weekends. So anything that's done outside of that, we need to be knowing that it's not going to compromise what's already been done here in Hawke's Bay. And a lot of work's been and time has been put in from into this project by Nick Cornwall down the back through council and Alan's suggestion. So I'm wondering if, through you, Chair, is there anything that Nick may have to offer to this discussion that would be of value to councillors to be hearing at this point? Sorry to put you on the spot, but you know, I mean, you're sitting there.
Yes. Nick? Makes sense.
Hi.
Right. Is there like a specific question you'd like me to answer, or would you like me to just sort of talk to the? Well, I think in the work that I've done, I've always seen the Gisborne opportunity is limited by the amount of cargo, and that the barrier to starting a Gisborne service is the $3 to $5 million cost of reinstating the line. That's the big difference with the Wairoa option. So there is a substantial hurdle to get over to start, and in our the regional councils and the port's involvement, we've tried to put a deal together with a reasonably low barrier to entry and a low barrier to exit if it doesn't go well. So everyone's protected, and no one would be in the hole by millions of dollars, which this opportunity to Gisborne has got a big commitment to start. And in order for that to be a viable option, I think people just have to say, well, is that the best home for $5 million? And at what sort of time frame do we want to pay back? Because that is simply a matter of money. It's just money is the difference there, and it's the sort of scale of the commitment to get it going is the major difference. What would potentially tip the scales and make that work is a big process of producing lots of year-round cargo.
That's right.
And as Steve said, you don't want it to be a chicken and egg thing, but if someone's going to build a really big mill and produce a whole lot of volume, a $5 million commitment is, could be underwritten with cargo to make that work. But I mean, these are very theoretical, and it was not on the horizon in any of the work that we've done.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, I think we've pretty well traversed. Alan, you're okay?
I'd like to move.
Sorry, just one.
With your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I've just got, this is the Gisborne Herald last night paper, and at the bottom here, seeking prime operator, sawmills potential to be realised, jobs created. And now, Eastland Community Trust, some time ago, a few years ago, purchased this mill. If you don't know who Eastland Community Trust is, it's a body that, yes, okay, right, I'm going to tell you that. So they've invested $12.1 million to reactivate the former prime sawmill site, and they're now launching a campaign to find an operator. So there has been backing from a processing company called Wood Engineering Technology Gisborne Limited, which is Auckland based, and they've now relocated to be part of the operation. I don't know a lot about it at the moment, but it's been probably, I'll hand it over to Steve because he's probably more in touch with it, but we always saw this as the game changer in Gisborne. For those of us who have been passionately wanting the rail to be back together again, we saw this as providing just what Nick has referred to as underpinning in terms of cargo and freight out of Gisborne, because that would be one of the prime customers. There is a thinking in Gisborne that they'll get their coastal shipping port up and running, and that's where the product will go. But there are some infrastructure difficulties with Port Eastland attempting to build coastal shipping. It hasn't worked in the past. Many of you would know that. It just all fell away, as Steve has said. As my other hapu hat on, I'm from Ngāti Ononi, which the harbour once belonged to us, and we were shifted out and ceremoniously shifted out in 1900 and told to go away. But we're back, and we're not going anywhere. And we've said very, very significantly to Eastland Group, to Port Eastland, that No, we're not allowing them to extend the harbour anymore. We've already given them sufficient log yard, and that is the end of it. So from that point of view, coastal shipping will not proceed any further in Gisborne. And I know the media is sitting here, but I have to say that. I have to state it now. Coastal shipping, coastal shipping will not be proceeding in Gisborne. It failed before, and Ngāti One are not going to give any more approvals and consents for them to extend their yard or to do any more dredging. So that's where it rests. So the rail line is the only way out of Gisborne. If we want to grow, if we want infrastructure, then we do have to find investors. We have been working very hard on that part of it, but I can't categorically state here that we've got an investor, to provide the capital fund to fix the line right now. But it's election year. Who knows?
Kia ora.
The minister might suddenly turn up and want to fix our line for us.
Kia ora, Nikki. That's useful. Just one final question and then we'll...
Yeah, just intrigued. Eastern Community Trust has got this land asset they're looking to, I guess, turn into a productive asset. Just a bit of history, but I had a discussion a few years back with Sam Ling, who Malaysian company that owns Hikarangi Forest Farms, and the constraint, one of their biggest constraints was frankly the ability to run a decent sized sawmill. It was energy based, and the ability to the line's network wasn't up to it. Has Eastern Community Trust persuaded this company to actually attend to that issue? Because I think that wasn't the only constraint, but it was a fundamental constraint.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So, but it is interesting that Eastern Community Trust in the space, or in a particular space, whereas Eastland itself is maybe a slightly different one.
Well, thank you. And we have a resolution, mover, Councillor Barker.
Yes, I'd like to move the resolution, and I have an amendment to it. 2.2, where it says continues to offer its support for the preservation of rail freight options. I think it's a very neutral thing. I would like to read continues to offer its support for the preservation and preferably the restoration of rail freight options.
That's got a mover and a seconder for that resolution, which I think is admirable as well. So, is there any comment on that? Any, Councillor Barker?
Let's say that, look, firstly, the issue of coastal shipping is being raised. Let's put this back inside the crypt. Coastal shipping died in New Zealand a long time ago for multiple reasons. None of them have changed. Anybody who says coastal shipping is coming back to New Zealand fast is just dreaming. Second point I'd like to make is that the brief point that was made about if we restore rail freight, then things will happen as a consequence of that. Firstly, people do things when there is where the infrastructure is. Take the walkways along the front of Marine Parade here. No one walked up and down the beach at Marine Parade. Put the infrastructure in, thousands do every day. It's the simple thing. Put the infrastructure, things will follow. Now, I'm really a big fan of that. The third point I make here is that our predecessors, our forebears, built this rail line by hand. And it's an enormous investment, and we the guardians of the day, have let it sit by for $5 million. Now, the thing about the investment, sunk cost of this, $5 million is little for nothing for its restoration. The next element about this, for me, is we have a single road network between Napier and Gisborne, and a railway line over there will give us options which we don't have at the moment. So in the event of a major disaster or something, if the road goes out, we've got a rail option in there. So it's a really good thing. On every level you look at this is a great thing to do. Yes, I can see that there are issues and that we have got every $5 T crossed, it's on all the plans done, the words right and so on. But that for me is not the issue. The issue here is that it is a matter of significance here, and someone has to raise a flag and say we need to do something. Who does it, how it's done, I think is something to be worked out as time goes on. For me, and listening to what you're saying, it's a little bit like in my cultural background, whenever there's trouble, someone went to the common, raised a flag, viewed the bugle, and people turned up. Whoever turned up, and that's what they did. Yeah, what you were doing here is sticking the flag up on the common, blowing the bugle, and I would say, from my point of view, I support this regional council being 100% behind you to do what needs to be done. How it will be done, I'm not sure, but we need to do something to restore that line for all the reasons that people have said today.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to briefly add that the Wairoa district has lost industry because of the demise of rail, particular sawmilling, and you know, it's not so much build it and they will come, they're already there. So happy to support that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the reason justifying this regional council support for this initiative is quite plain and simple, and it's been there for a long time, endorsed by the Regional Transport Committee, and that is to ensure that this region to the north has, as it has to the south, has multimodal transport options and competition between those modes, that it has route security, as Councillor Barker points out, and then in terms of road safety, that we minimise the increased volume of heavy vehicles on State Highway 2. I didn't say we would reduce, because we're not going to reduce. With the Wairoa forests coming online and with the freight coming out of Gisborne in any case, our intention would be to minimise the impact of heavy vehicles, and as Steve has implied, the truckies don't particularly want to use that road anyway. It's just too hard on their gear. They can't load their trucks properly. So I support the motion. How we go about moving from here, I think, is for some offline discussions. But the Transport Committee is actually meeting in Wairoa on the 10th of March, and Gisborne Transport Committee and probably Potiki interests will also be there, because we're discussing the Matariki objective of improving road transport options north, but in doing that, anytime we're talking about improving road transport options, we've got to be thinking about rail as well.
Any other comment around the table? Just perhaps one for myself. Tairāwhiti is the first part of the world to see the light, and I wonder whether the council can be persuaded up there to perhaps see some of that light. I'd be interested. I think Councillor Barker's highlighted moral support, at least from this council, but I'd be interested to know, or to suggest that the business case clearly is the issue that needs to be developed immediately, and we certainly have some expertise both in-house and in the person of Councillor Dick in terms of experience around that, and I'm sure that sort of support is easily given. But I'd be interested to see a proposal back to Council at some point in the near future if the Gisborne District Council were to put up some dollars for a business plan. Be interested to see what sort of response you may get around this table to support that in some way. So we wish you luck in that endeavour. We have a resolution. All those in favour of that? Thank you. Councillors, that's the end of agenda item 9. Minutes to 11. Assuming you're in some refreshment. Takes you now to consider agenda item 8, which is the Because I'll shout a cup of tea, like $2 coin donation.